The advantages of smaller scale diversified farming are enormous. It makes much more ecologic sense. It can be energy positive compared to the enormous energy required to grow food in our current large industrialized extractive monoland. Some research shows 13 units of energy, mostly fossil fuels, in to get 1 unit of food energy out. Smaller scale can be much more economically sound. Look at the success stories in market gardening. Some take home more than 100K per hectare. And yes, it can also produce more food per hectare and acre, so it can quote unquote feed the world. So what's the catch? Hands and usually back-breaking work. Smaller scale diversified farms used to rely on a lot of labor, villages coming together for the harvest, etc. That's no longer possible in many places. So the natural question is, what machinery and tools are needed to have smaller scale diversified farms thrive and not burn out and break their lower backs? Huge multi-million-dollar combine harvesters and tractors are probably not gonna cut it. This is the Investing in Regenerative Agriculture and Food podcast, Investing as if the planet mattered, where we talk to the pioneers in the regenerative food and agriculture space to learn more on how to put our money to work to regenerate soil, people, local communities, and ecosystems while making an appropriate and fair return. Why my focus on soil and regeneration? Because so many of the pressing issues we face today have their roots in how we treat our land and our sea, grow our food, what we eat, where and consume. And it's time that we as investors, big and small, and consumers start paying much more attention to the dirt/soil underneath our feet. To make it easy for fans to support our work, we launched our membership community, and so many of you have joined us as a member. Thank you. If our work created value for you, and if you have the means, and only if you have the means, consider joining us. Find out more on gumroad.com/investing-in-regen-ag. That is gumroad.com/investing-in-regen-ag, or find the link below. Welcome to another episode, today with the co-founder of Organic Tools. They believe the future of ag is small scale, and they make the machinery and tools to make that vision a reality. Welcome, David.
Thank you so much. Exciting to be here.
I'm really excited for this one. And first of all, a shout out to your deck. If anybody hasn't seen that, definitely get in touch. If you're interested in investing, obviously no investment advice, but it's a really good storytelling deck as well that really shows the potential of small scale ag, filled with numbers and with data, with really good visuals, and talks about the movement of market gardening. We'll get into that, what is missing there in terms of tools and equipment, and what you are building. So I really enjoyed going through that. I enjoyed seeing you, although you didn't see me. I think I saw the demonstration at Groundswell. It really is different to see machinery in person and in field, let's say. And it was fascinating to see a few of your devices there in a stand. So that was really good to see and to dig a bit deeper. So thank you for coming on here. And I always like to start with a personal question. And from all, like, how come you spend most of your awake hours thinking about small scale farming and soil and the machinery that needs it? Like, what led you to this quite specific career path? There could be a lot of other easier ones to do, but what led you to this one?
They could have been definitely more easier ones, I'm sure as well. Yeah, in a way, like looking back, I think it was Steve Jobs who said this in a speech. You can only connect the dots if you look back. And like one of this moment was definitely as a child. I was very lucky to grow up in nature, outside, like climbing in the trees. We had a small river next to our house, and I really loved to create stuff in the garden, and also like building a dam and a pond in the river. And I had this like very early on this lived experience of how it feels to be a keystone species. So I had this pond, and then the whole ecosystem changed. And I was part of this, and I felt like a small creator, building stuff and like outside in nature. So when I look back, this is one of these experiences which definitely made some made me aware of what's the role also of our species and what is able when we collaborate and work with nature.
And how did you roll into the smaller scale farming side of things? Not the smallholders, like we're not talking sub-Saharan Africa or East Africa, just as important, maybe more important, but the small scale farming movement, because I think we can call it a movement in Europe.
Yes, definitely. There are maybe two kind of streams. One part was for sure like to coming from a legacy of smallholders. Like my grandfather was a smallholder, and I think as many people do. I mean, we've lost around 90% of the farmers, and most of them were smallholders. So I think this plays a role, and also like I. After my school, I spent a year in Romania. Like I did civil service instead of military service. So I lived there in Maramuresh in the north of Romania, and it was like traveling back in time. And it's this amazing, beautiful cultural landscape, and really created by smallholders with a lot of hedges, and small fields and all this. Yeah, like you could really feel and smell and taste the landscape there, which is human scale with small machinery, with horses. And I was there like 20 years ago. And of course it changed now, but it gave me the impression of how landscape should look like. And also this love for cultural landscape and this interconnection of people and nature, people and landscape.
And then you came back to Austria and were like, this is a bit different. or what happened after that? Because it could have been your civil servant experience. Great, I will go into, I don't know, a consulting job in Vienna or in London, or I will go into big corporates or wherever you end up going. What happened there, and how did it lead to what you're doing now?
Yeah, already with 16, 17 years, I got a book of the Austrian permaculture legend Sepp Holzer into my hands. And it was like diving into this rabbit hole of permaculture in an early age already. And it led me to this, okay, I want to learn more about this. And first it was permaculture, and then this, okay, studying organic farming. And so it was just this, to see also, or to be in Romania, it was just this, okay, a direction in this field of agriculture, permaculture. And yeah, it's also not something what you learn on university. Like, I was interested in trees, and tried to find all the courses and lectures for orchards, but it was more this kind of intensive orchard, like for desert apples and whatever. And yeah, in a way, I have this love for cultural landscape, and also like, as we have it also in Austria a lot, these traditional orchards. It's like this, a part of the old landscape, a part of the old agriculture, which is still existing. Like I read this phrase of the last forest gardens of Europe. So there is actually a legacy of forest gardens if you're able to find it and see it.
Which means managed places, not a jungle or wild forest, but I think in Europe and in many places for millennia and way more, we've managed these landscapes. We've planted, or we at least trimmed the trees we didn't want. We pruned the ones we did want. We shaped them in a way. And a lot of it is overgrown, so we don't really see it anymore because it's abandoned. I think there's a stat in your deck of like the abandoned orchards, and there are many reasons to that, but one of them is harvesting, and it's very difficult to harvest, or it's difficult by hand if you don't have so many people anymore in the landscape to harvest the apples when they're ripe, or to even in a industrial orchard. I read it's difficult. I think they leave 10 to 15% of the apples on the trees simply because they don't have the hands to harvest them at the right moment. I think in the forest gardens it's way more, but this landscape of patched forests, fruit trees, productive trees mixed with others is how we managed a lot of these landscapes for eons, basically. That has disappeared partly, and you say, okay, there's an intervention point with machinery. Like there's a lever we can pull there. There's something we can do now we couldn't do 5, 10, 20 years ago. And so how did that lead to your first tool or first machine you built?
Yeah. So like just to add a number, to have an image, like because for me it helps to standing in this traditional orchard and imagine that this is about 10% left. So around 90% in Europe of these forest gardens disappeared. And also like part of it is because it was not the whole structure of agriculture, of course, and also subsidies to clear these old orchards. And part of it is harvest for sure, because for example I worked in an association, Noah's Ark it's called in Austria. It's about heirloom seeds and preserving old, like the genetic diversity of fruits and seeds. And I was there in consulting, and we worked with traditional orchards because there you still have as the trees get really old there, like you have trees which are 80, 100, 200 years old if it's a peri pear. And so you still have these old varieties there. And it was a colleague actually who said, actually it would need appropriate machinery, because you have this large machinery which is more for professional cider apple producers, and you have this like really small more household use machine like tools, and there's nothing in between. And so I got hooked to see, okay, there could be a solution, like to support these people who are still preserving these orchards and who are working with it and making great cider, brandy, whatever choose. And so I thought about it, and I couldn't stop thinking about it actually, and did my own designs and sketching, and and in a way I also started to talk with people, like with my best friend Lukas, who is also now my co-founder, together with Stefan, who is the technical lead. And we said, let's build this tool. But both of us, we were not engineers, so it was quite the way until we reached there.
And so the tool that you eventually build is meant just to give a bit of imagery for people, because this is an audio medium, and so we have to. These orchards are old apple trees. Orchard, like they're not massive, but they're not small as well. It's not, they're 2 trees that you can easily harvest by hand, or you can easily pick up from the ground, because that what happened with a lot of these apples for cider, etc. That's perfectly fine. So there are 100 trees, 50 trees, something like that are just too much to harvest by hand, and too small and not structured in a way that big. I wouldn't even call them professional, because I think that's a dangerous narrative, that calling the other ones non-professional. Let's say big industrialized, super, super neat rows. Like you have machines to go through that. But of course, if you have your sort of patchy mix work of apples and pears and some other things, and then you need something to harvest them from the ground. You need something. And what now happens is you maybe harvest a bit by hand. Maybe you have a small tool here and there, and then you stop, and the rest you sort of leave, because it's just not. I think there's a stat in your deck. It's like negative. Like it's definitely not. It's a loss if you keep harvesting, because it just takes so much time to harvest a few hundred kilos of apples or a few thousand kilos of apples. Your back will be dead, and probably the rest of your body as well. So you started coming up with this device to basically go through the orchard walking, like it's not a tractor. And while doing that, you sort of it's not a vacuum cleaner, but you sort of absorb a lot of these apples that are on the floor. Was that the outset as well, or how did that come about? And I will encourage everyone to look at the website at some point and to see how it eventually became. But how did it start as a tool in your mind, your first sketches you mentioned?
Yeah, like the first sketches compared to the machine now, it's a huge difference, of course. And we also we found the technician, like this guy where people are talking about him, that he's building and creating interesting stuff. And we found him and we showed him the sketches, and he said, okay, this won't work as you imagined this. But then he also helped us to find a proper design and like a first version of a design to be able to kind of pick up these apples, throw them into a box, changing the box, and having this walk behind little harvester, which is electric. So you push it, and the pickup roller is electric, like the traction to the pickup roller, and then you throw them into the box. And
you use a power drill as a power source and as the engine, basically, right?
Yes, yeah. Like in the beginning, in the first year, we had the power drill. Like we built the first series with 120 pieces with a power drill, and then we skipped to an e-bike battery and a small engine. But now we are bringing it back. So this year we offer two versions. One is with the power drill, and one version is with a e-bike battery and a 400-watt engine.
Yeah, and for people to just imagine, that's cute and nice, but there are, and I have to say that there's 1.2 million hectares in Europe with agroforestry, with fruit trees. Just to give a bit of the size and the scale and of the potential of how many trees still are there. We lost 90% of the trees on farms, but there's still a good chunk left.
Yes.
And with a lot of fruit that every year is produced, like there's it might be a good year and a bad year, but there's a lot of that.
Yes, exactly.
Goes to waste now, or it actually is absorbed by the soil, but it's not going to food or drinks or things like that.
Yeah. It's also like a challenging part of the business model. Maybe we can look at this later, but you have on the one part you have this good apple year and this bad apple year, or fruit year. So usually you have like every second year a good year or a good harvest, and if you have a good harvest, you have trees which produce up to 1 ton of fruits. So like a pear tree, also like really strong apple trees. We had some I've seen some. In average, maybe 250 kilogram per tree. And so in a typical orchard of our customers, they have around harvest up to 30 tons per season. And so it's a lot of fruit if you have a good year, and if you need to pick it up by hand. Either you have a lot of people, as they had in former times, or you use just what you need for yourself maybe. But it's like to pick everything up and then to sell it, also like to the cidery or to pick up to people who agglomerate and buy it. They also don't really pay a good price for it. So if you don't really make your own cider, it may not even be worth it to sell the fruit.
So you've seen people, like what are some stories of customers, early customers of the Fruit Cat? You sold quite a few, but like people they're now able to do things they couldn't do before. What are your favorite examples?
Yeah, there's, for example, this young Swiss farmer. He bought the harvest in the first year already. Like he saw it in the internet and was our first customer in Switzerland. And he's taking care of orchards which are like in the radius of 20, 30 kilometers. How much would it be in miles?
Doesn't matter, people can count.
Doesn't matter, okay, yes. So he like a large area, all the orchards. And so the machine was perfect for him because he could put it in the trunk of the back of the car and use the trailer to put the apples there. And like he used in the first year with the drill powered version, he harvested like 30 tons and driving around everywhere and like doing all the juice afterwards. And he said, yeah, he wouldn't be able to use all the fruits otherwise. And now he could produce the juice and sell the juice and has a good price for the juice because it's something what you can market also over a longer period. And yeah, maybe also another example was having on an agricultural fair, like we have been on many fairs, what is traditional fairs as well. And there was one man, 70, 80 years old with a bad leg. And he was like so happy to have a machine now because he can still continue the thing what he loves and to take care of the orchard and produce his cider. And it was like really touching to see this. Also this love for machinery in a way, like it's people appreciated it a lot, like how it not just functions, but also how it looks like and how it feels like to harvest. So it's really fun. And we have a lot of like families which are now the kids are beating who is allowed to drive with the machine. And before nobody wanted to harvest the fruits because it sucks, of course. I also did it and still have a trauma. So
and a bad back, yeah.
Yes.
It's interesting. You mentioned that were fun indeed to because big ag is lonely and like it's. I think we forgot how not only pleasantly the countryside is a different tangent, but pleasantly the countryside can look, and mixed. We know from research like mixed landscape with different patches with trees, etc., is way more pleasant to the eye than a mono land. But of course, it has to be functional in that sense as well, if we choose to do so. And it's like, how do we harvest? How do we do that? And this seems like a really fun object. Yeah, and if people start, of course, 30 tons is a different thing than a few trees, etc. But it enables things that otherwise wouldn't be possible. So you've sold quite a few. You've been working on this since 2018, and then what's next? Are you gonna why the product we're gonna talk about now, the machine, instead of like other fruit types or other, I don't know, olives or other things that are no longer harvested in many ways? Like what have you? Of course, perfectioning this, the one mostly focused on apple and those kind of harder fruits. What was in your mind as next steps and logical next steps for the tools company? Because as a tool company, you want to have a portfolio of ones and not just a single. I think what was the next step, or what is the next step?
Yeah, as the name organic tools, it was already part of the mission, like to be more than just
plural.
Obstraupe, as we call it in German. Like we introduced the brand Fruitcat, also because it's difficult to pronounce for English tongues, Obstraupe. And so, yes, like with this Fruitcat, we built really a lot of experiences, and also like the perfectioning of the product, and having a really great product market fit. It's something what we really learned and where we are really good at. So very early on, actually, we had this idea of creating a modular tool, like the Fruitcat, also using it not just to pick up fruits, but maybe also to harvest seeds from meadows. There's this issue for biodiversity, collect the seeds, and having also other use cases for the product. Mm-hmm. And then we ended up like diving into market gardening. Also, we have a market gardener in the team, Katrin, and I'm also following GM Fortier and Richard Perkins, and like following the whole movement. And
just for people that don't know, how would you describe market gardening as a movement?
Market gardening is like this approach of bio-intensive production on a small scale, mainly of vegetables, which sell very good also on the market, And another part of the business model is also like to sell it direct to consumers. So it can be a box scheme, it can be direct on the farmers market, or CSA, whatever. And so this market gardens, it's like a really great example of how much you can produce on 1 acre of land or 1 hectare of land, how many people can live off 1 hectare, and also how much revenue you can make. Like there are these examples of 100,000 euros per hectare, and it's like I met people who earn more and people also who earn less. But if you compare it to farming, it's like
it's
enormous.
crazy.
It's
and most
enormous,
people,
yes.
I don't think most people realize this is a movement. Like these are many, many people in the last 10, 15, 20 years. And the people you mentioned, Jean-Martin Fortier, I will put links below, Richard Perkins. We've had Anna van Leeuwen in the Netherlands on the podcast, Matteo Mazzola in Italy. And like how intensive, how much you can get off 1 hectare. And we'll get how complex it is and backbreaking. But how intensive and how ecologically sound this can be. Of course, it's an intensive practice, but it's very dense. It's very mostly hand tools and sold directly. And in many cases sold previously already in the season or before the season in the winter. And there are people like taking serious, let's say, quote unquote, city salaries home for agriculture per hectare. Like they even make, I think, wineries be ashamed of what they can pull off of a hectare. But it has its drawbacks. Like we see a lot of burnout. We see a lot of people going very enthusiastically in it. It's really hard work, amazing, but really, really hard work. So you started talking to that movement, let's say, and then what clicked?
Yeah, also as you shared, you see this a lot of young people like starting, also new farmers like going into farming, and because it's easier like to rent 1 hectare than a whole farm, and like to see what they're doing also for food sovereignty, selling great healthy vegetables and produce, and also big part is community. Like you have not just 1 person working on this farm, but maybe 2 or 3, and still like this challenge of a lot of manual work. It needs to really be optimized and smart workflows. And if you are not able to integrate these workflows, it can be challenging like to persist on the long term. And so you also see a lot of people, I don't know numbers exactly, but a lot of people who need to close after a few years because it's just, too much. And so
we discussed that in the interview. It might be out at this time or not, with Andres Jara in Amsterdam or close to Amsterdam. And he very deliberately created a team. And so there are multiple co-founders. It's, I think, 4 or 5 people, different roles. And they really build it like a small company. So you can take holidays and you really manage it as not just a 2-person operation or 1-person operation, which we often see. And that seems like to have changed a lot in terms of ability to not burn out and ability to manage. Of course, they're volunteers. It's all direct sold, etc. But really 4 or 5 people have to live off this. And so we have to manage it differently than 1 person that has to do everything, or 2 people. That is often a recipe for burnout. Of course, it comes with challenges of managing a small company with 4 or 5 people, but it also comes with a lot of opportunities that he can go, I think, 2 months a year to Brazil on holiday, or like in the winter, of course, and he can take the whole summer. He can work the whole summer while his co-founders with children would like to go on holiday in that period. And even the fact that you can take holiday, I think, is already an interesting one. So I will link that interview below when it's out.
Yeah. So basically the idea was, how can we bring these experiences, what we have with the fruit cat, into market gardening on the one hand, and how can a modular small tractor look like and function, and bring all the, like, having something in between a big tractor, which can be like really crazy and you can't use it in a small scale. And also like all these hand tools. and you have this walk behind tractors, but it's like they didn't really change the last 100 years a lot, and you have all these implements, and it's also like quite hard to work with these. So also, like I talked with two market gardeners and two women, and they say they don't like to work with this walk behind tractor. It's loud, it's noisy. They need a lot of effort, like to steer it, and so it's also the user experience is not so great to work with those. And we know that we can make a good user experience because we did it with the fruit cat, with the harvester. And so our approach is to make a modular walk behind tractor, electric, with an amazing user experience, which is also possible as it is electric, and we can build it electric, having all the interfaces and the smart steering, and having like introduce with this walk behind tractor and also the models what we are working on, like you can have a PTO where you use the implements which are on the market already, but also bring new implements like a bed weeder where you fly over the beds and can easily
whoa, we have to explain this. Okay, you fly over the beds. How does that work? I've seen it, so I know what it is, but how does a tractor fly or make you fly? Visual. We need a visual.
Yes. Yeah, it's like you lay down on your belly. You have this ergonomic bed. You can put your head on a rest, and you have your hands free and can use your hands to pick up strawberries or to weed, and have a steering with the feet. So that's
basically you lay sort of under this when you mentioned the overhead tractor, it's 4 wheels, sorry, 2 small ones in front or in the back, depending on how you turn, 2 larger ones.
Yes.
Of course, the width of a normal market garden bed, which I think is 80 centimeters or a meter. Anyway,
yes.
Enough to be on the paths and not over the food. And then you hang under that sort of in a bed, let's say, or in like a hammock, but a very strong one. So you're floating above the bed and you move slowly over the bed with your speed and your steering, and you can do all the things without breaking your back, basically, and bending completely because you're completely flat. And so you're flying above the bed, basically, quote unquote. And that changes a lot. I don't think there's some bigger ones. I've seen some like 2 or 3 people next to each other to plant things, but on this scale, I haven't seen.
Yes, exactly. Like it's not something what we invented. It's used for picking cucumbers, for example, and you also have like huge rows of tractors and 10 to 20 people picking cucumbers on like the field. And you have also bed weeders, different models, but which are just bed weeders. And like our modular approach allows that you use the walk behind tractor with the bed weeder implement. And if you're finished with harvesting your strawberries, for example, or weeding, then you can change the implement to a PTO and do soil preparation or hoeing and weeding. So you can use many different implements as you do also with a tractor.
Yeah, and so we're now talking in August 2024. What point are you? What's the current status of the track?
Yes. So we developed the last 2 years. We also had some grants we invested in and did a lot of talks and tests in the field. So we have prototype number 4, soon 5. And this year we are still testing, like directly on the field. We also have this approach. It's something what we learned from developing the harvester. To go very early on, to go out into the fields and show it to farmers, try it out with them, and integrate their experiences and knowledge. Because then you can, you don't do it later if you're on the market already, but already during the development. And we also decided like to have kind of a pre-launch. So we are showing the prototype and yeah, we have been the groundswell of it, and engage with the people, engage with the community, and also building up traction and building up like kind of excitement for the tool. And now we are pre-selling to our first customers. We offer a good price, and and plan to bring 10 pieces to the market next year, 10 to 20 pieces. And after that, like rolling it out, maybe still being able to have the customers near to our production site to be able to make a really good service and be able there if there is any issue and improve it with them together. Because to be honest, it's difficult to be. It's also good that there is still some knowledge and experience from the everyday work.
Yeah, and it's hardware, so it's let's say doing a software update. It's not that easy to just fix something that should have been developing new tools. There's a reason why you see a lot of very old tractors on small scale farms or very old machinery that have been bought either a long time ago or recently, second, third, fourth hand. It can be fixed, usually locally, can be adjusted, is noisy and heavy and partially dangerous, but is used because there's nothing else on the market, or very, very expensive and from very, very far, which is tricky. And so, you're really in the middle of that last pre-production phase, basically, to start.
Exactly.
And what has been the reaction from your potential customers, what when they see it and touch it and feel it? Because I think that's important, not just see the videos, obviously.
Yeah, I think we really hit the nail on the head with this product. So there's a lot of excitement of people, of market gardeners, not just market gardeners, but like to see this approach also of how we do things and where we can. I think people also can see that it's not our first product, and we have been through this journey of prototyping, creating product market fit, creating a series, and bringing distilling all this experience into this new product. And also, like, there's not so much happening in this field of small scale farming. Like, I've been on so many agricultural fairs, and we were like really lonely out there as a company focusing on small scale farming. Maybe you have gardening and this kind of stuff, yes, but like to be on these fairs, it's enormous how much money is in big ag and in big ag machinery. So
we were discussing that before. Like, your target price, I think, is around 12 plus K, let's say, euros, and it's crazy that a big ag, very energy intensive. I think the like in terms of and also in terms of production. I mean, what we just discussed as well. How much money can be made on a hectare would surprise people, and they don't even show up on the official numbers probably as a farmer or as a farm because they're too small. They're not even recognized, and that also means that it's almost impossible to get funding or finance for any of this. And a farmer can refinance or can get a lease for his mega combine of hundreds of thousands, if not more, probably easily going to 500,000 to 1 million. And I think it would be very difficult for a market gardener to get any kind of financing or lease for a 12,000 euro machine or 15,000 that could change completely his or her life. And they probably have the finance to do it. Actually, they have the revenue, but they just are not going to be recognized by any bank as a farmer, and thus cannot get any farming loan, which is crazy if you think about it, because they actually produce food compared to many others that are not.
Yes, exactly. Yeah, it's an example of this subsidy bias. What we have, like, I know in Europe, I think it's about 80% of the subsidies go into the 10% largest farms. So yes, so it's kind of
that says it all. Yeah.
It's not really fair. It's not a fair game, and in a way, also as a company, we are on the side of smallholders, and it's also like a huge challenge for us, like to not having the interest of John Deere kind of big ag, and also the subsidies, because farmers with good subsidies are also, it's more easy to finance like equipment.
How fundamental would be financing for your clients potentially? Just like in the conventional big ag monoland, you can get, of course, financing for a lot of machinery. How fundamental could that be, or would that be for your clients or your customers that are on a much smaller scale, actually producing a lot, having a real financial and, of course, ecological impact, but probably are not eligible at all for any kind of ag loans or machinery loans or leases or things like that?
Yes, it's it's an interesting part, because we did a lot of interviews and talked with a lot of these market gardeners, and you have a lot of new market gardeners and a few like pioneers in the field, and like a lot of the more established market gardeners, they invest in equipment and they know already what is working. And especially if you set up a market garden, every investment counts, and people are very hesitate a lot like to invest. And it would also make a huge difference, like to design your market garden with the equipment in mind. I mean, it's happening everywhere. Each farmer knows already.
Wow, of course.
What tractor you have, which implements you can use, and it makes a huge difference, like how you approach your design of the market garden or like of your farm, if you know already about the equipment. And so, the track and the models, like with this concept also, we really hit a nail on the head. Like there's a huge interest and people like it, and still like there's this how I'm gonna finance this. So it will be challenging,
and an opportunity as well, because it enables people. Maybe it makes it easier if you design it differently, and if you design it like it makes it easier to hit those 100K per hectare or more easily than you would otherwise. Is that something you also, with not just saving your back and doing like, but is it also something like the financial potential of having a machine like this? Is that something you've designed into, if you've researched or looked into?
I think it makes a huge difference. And I think also why market gardening is so successful is because pioneers like GM, Fortier, Richard Perkins, and also many others in the movement, and new people, like they offer a kind of a blueprint where you can start very easily, learn on the go, but maybe shorten the learning curve or steepen. Like you learn more easily, and you can like you stay on the shoulders of giants who did it already. And so this would also like be an opportunity to create the equipment with these systems and workflows and structures in the mind, in order for people to be able to implement this very easily. So it's so the idea is like to make it like really a high user experience, and making like really good equipment and great tools where people then also can integrate these workflows which have a high promise, like to be successful also for this kind of market garden structure.
And do you see beyond the track and like beyond the market garden? Of course you see, but like what are other areas that really seem in small scale farming that really seems to be missing tools?
Like we with the fruit cat, with the harvester, we're in agroforestry, and it's also like a great example of diversified production. And we also gain more and more interest, like from the new wave of agroforestry, I would call it. And like people who are producing nuts or different of tree crops, so to say. And also like with syntropic agroforestry, we see this opportunity, okay, of how can you work with the tree rows and making equipment like for this part, also with truck, potentially also with larger equipment, but like our focus is now also like what kind of models could we make with the truck in order to be able to do different jobs. And it can also go into diversified farming, like, for example, I mentioned before the idea of harvesting wildflower seeds from meadows in order to be able to use it for biodiversity replanting or seeding. And also like producing herbs can also be an interesting part where you have kind of a equipment to cut the herbs. And for this, our idea is like we would like to collaborate with other producers who are producing already equipment, maybe even for the whole weeding equipment. And I mean, potentially you can also, truck is electric, so it's not a big thing to put implements with sensors or whatever. And so the modular design can also be thought like this to making some automatization, appropriate automatization, and like to work together with other producers of equipment and to downscale the large equipment to a truck and make it available for a market garden.
And like, you've been talking to investors obviously as well in the financial world, and what would be your main message to them? Let's say we do this live. I would like to ask this question in a theater, and we of course have the machinery on stage, so you can see it, a lot of imagery behind of market gardens, and in the room it's mostly a financial crowd, investors with their own wealth, or people working in finance. What would be your main message to them? Something you would like, a seed you would like to plant, something you would like them, of course, you would like them to understand many things, but if there's one thing you should choose that they should remember from that evening, what would that be?
Yes, it's important to not only focus on bits and bytes, and like it makes a huge difference which tools farmers use, and it changes the landscape, like depending on the tools they are using. So I just want to remind people to not to forget about hardware, because I know it can be very it can be very, very nice to have business models in software, and hardware may take longer, may need more patience, but it's also rewarding because it changes like the everyday work, and with the equipment, with the hardware, you are in the field with the farmers, and they have the tools in the hand, and it makes a difference how the tool is working and how the equipment changes their possibilities to use it on their farms.
And what would you do if you would be in their shoes? If you had we like to ask this question, if you had €1 billion to invest, what would you focus on? What would you invest in? Of course, not exact amounts, but what would be the big focus areas if you had a fund with a very long life cycle potentially? But if you had to put that to work, what would you focus on?
Yeah, I like this question because you invite me to dream. And like what feels exciting for me if I think about, to invest 1 billion, would to think really small and to invest it into a community, into like a village, and making like really building community and creating projects and like also businesses, ventures in this village which are collaborating and farms, and try to like really create this abundance of life in a village, and also trusting that it will return in many different ways, and also like this, having this resilience of a village and of many people, of diversity also within the people and the projects, and to create like a blueprint, which could also serve as a way into the future of regeneration and healing. And like if I would also question my intentions, because I'm quite skeptic of billionaires who try to save the world. And try
rightfully so in many cases. It's an interesting contradiction of spreading on smaller scale, etc., and then you would find yourself with a billion. Of course, that's why we asked the question. Not thinking, but at the same time thinking that regeneration at scale like will get that kind of attention, and will get those questions like, okay, where do I? And I think the big question there is how to, like Bart likes to say of fresh ventures, how do you cut big money in small pieces? Because the big money will be interested in this, and if we can't find ways to put that to work, it will go somewhere else, or the energy that it brings will keep feeding the destructive agriculture side, and so we have a choice to make if we want to engage with that kind of level of energy, and then if yes, how? And how do we cut it in small pieces, and governance and incentives, etc., which is extremely difficult. Like I'm not naive here.
That's true. And it's also like there's this part where I'm thinking, okay, if you put all the money into one village, then how do you scale it? And there you often hear this question of, okay, how can we scale regenerative agriculture? And from my perspective, like scaling something is in a way also part of the problem, and part of this mindset of achieving something and bringing the solution out to the people. So in a way, I'm a huge fan of Tony, the Australian guy, Tony Rinaldo, I think, like who introduced kind of a pruning technique in order to create trees out of small bushes which have been there already in Africa, and like it went viral in a way. So it's a difference to scaling. It was more like giving the seeds for a kind of a movement, and people are telling the stories and carrying the technique and this approach to other areas. And now you can see from space like so many trees which grew through this technique. And
Jer and Mali, I think a lot. We we might be interviewing him soon.
Oh, this would be exciting. I'm a huge fan. He's so inspiring, and so I also want to integrate his perspective and his journey into my work, and think about it. Okay, how could we not scale, but like create this movement and strengthen this small scale farming, regenerative, diversified, human scale, where also energy positive. I mean, a huge issue will be energy also in the future. I'm thinking about this a lot, like as our egg and food systems, you need around 10 joules of input to create 1 joule of output, like traditional food systems, or also I'm sure market gardening food systems, regional energy positive. So you get more output from the input you use through work and taking care of the
it
farm.
feels like we live in that potentially what is Nate calling it, Hagen's the great simplification. Like we've been living on this crazy fossil fuel
energy
era
pools.
They're just energy pools that is so dense. Like fossil fuels are so dense and hard to replace. But it seems like it's normal to use 10 to 13 times the energy to create one calorie, 1 joule of edible energy. And of course, it's only possible if you have unlimited fossil resources, which we don't. And like there are only so many dinosaur bones we can burn.
Yes.
And that ends at some point. And when it does, and it's probably going to be in shocks, not just very gradually, it's going to be quite painful. Like we underestimate how much fossil fuel there is in agriculture and food. And you showed very nicely on your slide, like 13 or 12 to 1. And compared to smaller scale diversified, where it's positive, like you put less energy in than comes out. But we somehow don't value that at all in the current system, like energy in and out, or even inputs in and out. Like there's no, it's one of the few sectors where we never ask that question. So I think agriculture and food, of course, we've been looking at, okay, what's the carbon potential of the soil, etc. But I think that's not the point. The point is, of course, grow more trees, healthier soil, store a lot, great. But actually, how do we get the fossil fuels out of the system? That's the bigger lever and the faster lever. And I think people underestimate how much is used to create fertilizer, to create chemical inputs, how much diesel goes into a tractor every day. And it's been getting worse, actually, the energy equation. Like the energy return on investment, like you mentioned, is not getting better over the last decades. And that's an issue.
Yeah,
I'll get off my pedestal now. Yeah.
It's a big issue, and I have the feeling that we don't talk enough about it. And as you mentioned, Nate Higgins is doing a great work, also talking about this energy blindness, what you can see and feel everywhere. Once you have heard about it, you can't unhear it and unsee it. And it's definitely like a
link in the show notes.
Yes. So it's also like it's informing our approach, how we think machinery and tools, and how we think about farming. And in a way, I can't really imagine something else than smallholder farmings. It's just a question of how long or how much time it will take.
And how messy the transition is.
Exactly. So it's my part of helping to be prepared and to prepare farmers for this. Also, like to and our part in the company, like to offer the kind of tool and equipment which might enable them to be more energy positive.
And if you could change one thing overnight, and you had a magic and you had a wand to wave a wand and change one thing overnight, what would that be?
Just in the agriculture space or in general?
No, anywhere. We've had global consciousness, better flavor, all animals outside, ending of all subsidies. We've had like super practical and other also practical, but different practical, let's say, or everybody loves lentils. We've had the full spectrum of answers.
Yes. It feels like there's so many levels I think about which would seem very logic to me. And still, if I really have just one spell, I think I would cast like a dream on the whole of humanity, on every human being, and dream straight into the heart, and where people feel like how it is to live in tune with nature again, and to be kind of indigenous to Earth again. And I would trust like that this dream will come in different patterns and forms and shapes, and still like to inform decisions and to be able, okay, to have an image of this future where we are living in a healed earth, on a healed earth, and with healed people and healed water and soil, toxic free. Like to have kind of a reference and a remembering of this. And I would hope that this would lead the people forward and growing as a seed in them to inform the decisions.
Thank you. I think it's a perfect way to wrap up this conversation. Thank you so much for joining us here to share on your journey and to build these and not choose an easier path in software and not hardware, and build these tools for farmers to make them more independent, more successful, less prone to burnout, and hopefully save some lower backs in the process as well. And of course, grow a lot of healthy, nutrient dense food in a way that makes ecological and energetically sense.
Yeah, thank you so much for having me here, and thank you so much for the work you're doing. Like, it was a big inspiration also for me in the last years. And yes, looking forward to what will come.
Thank you so much for listening all the way to the end. For the show notes and links we discussed in this episode, check out our website, investinginregenerativeagriculture.com/posts. If you like this episode, why not share it with a friend or give us a rating on Apple Podcasts? That really helps. Thanks again, and see you next time.